welcome into the Just Basketball Show for Monday, July 10th. I am Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen. If you have not already, please follow and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Hit that subscribe on the YouTube channel as well. 5-star reviews only. Hit that notification bell. Do all the stuff to support the show. A big Victor Wembanyama show today. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about Gregg Popovich's extension. We're going to talk about a ton of Summer League. Thompson, Scoot Henderson. Brendon is going to have some too good for Summer League All-Stars that I'm very excited to dive into. And we're going to talk about Dejounte Murray's extension and where the Atlanta Hawks are at. And very quickly at the end, I think we might touch on some prep stuff. Just
some teenagers.
Some teenagers. One whom is the son of an NBA player who allegedly once lied to a blind man. And the other one who has the name of a cowboy, and I really enjoyed the guy with the name of a cowboy. That's Cooper Flagg. In case you didn't know.
Very San Antonio-centric today too, between Dejounte, former Spur, and then these two guys who are the future of the team.
Brendon, here's the thing: at the Just Basketball Show, we cover everything. You know, we did have a thing at the beginning of our show where we talked about privately how we weren't going to just focus on the Lakers. And then we obviously did spend a lot of time on the Lakers because they did stuff that mattered. But you know what? San Antonio, we're gonna dive in. We're gonna try to. We should probably at some point look at our list and see who we have talked about in detail and who we haven't. But like we did a Wizards deep dive. Like we're in this for realsies.
No, we're covering our bases. Yeah, San Antonio is the basketball capital of the world right now. Honestly, I mean, they sold out this janky Vegas arena twice to watch this dude. So I mean, us and everybody else paying attention to the Spurs. I don't know if we can take credit on this particular weekend.
I mean, I will. They got Kareem to go to Victor Wembanyama's first Summer League game,
and they did the panel together. I would have paid more to watch the panel than the game. If I'm being honest with you.
Yes,
unless they had gotten Kareem to play, then I would have paid more for the game.
I would have been a little worried about that, Brendon. I want to ask you this: aside from the Vic stuff, which obviously I think is a big case of Summer League FOMO. Are you feeling Summer League FOMO just in general? I have not been since you and I went in 2021, and we hung out. And that's the last and only time that I've been to Summer League. I do have my hat on from that trip in solidarity or in honor of that, I guess, and just us talking about Summer League. But do you have Summer League FOMO? Let's take Vic out of it because he is not saying him in itself is in this environment is FOMO. Do you have FOMO just not being at Summer League right now?
I don't, but I think that has a lot to do with the fact that I live 4.5 hours from Las Vegas, and I've been there way too many times in the 5 years since I turned 21. So not even really related to that's not me trying to humble brag how much I drink myself into a stupor. That's legit just for sports stuff and some concerts and whatnot. But I've been there 10 times in 5 years, so no. I'm not missing it for that reason. And I'm planning to go back not that far into the future because Ignite is doing some cool stuff with Australian teams, and they might have the number 1 and number 2 overall pick this year, and they're in Henderson, Nevada, so I will be there before long. But no, I mean, this was a great Summer League. This has been a great Summer League, I think. A lot of guys that went back for year 2. A lot of teams that feel including this Portland team we're about to talk about, where it's legit half their starting lineup is just in Vegas. Houston's that way. Detroit is kind of that way. The Pacers are kind of that way. So more real stuff to be learned this year than I think in a while, at least in my recollection. But yeah, none more so than the NBA debut of Vic, not Wemby.
Yes. I do have a little bit of FOMO. I'm not even a Vegas person. I was texting with our friend Martin Rickman, and we were talking about some Cavs stuff because he's from Cleveland, and there's a lot of Cavsy things I think you could actually dive into there that would have been cool, and there's no one there from that beat right now, so I think that would have been a really cool experience, and it's good to just see people in that space and be social and just get to do something that's very basketball centric in the summer. I also Brendon, really like the part of Summer League where you go to a gym and you just kind of don't leave there for a while and you just watch a ton of games. That to me is just a great way to spend some time. I don't think I didn't gamble at all when we were there because it stresses me out too much. I just am not wired in that way. And like
we did
I
watch
don't even know.
recent Just Basketball show guest Bill DiFilippo get slaughtered at a blackjack table. So
along with two of our other friends who I'm not going to name because they haven't appeared on the pod yet, but and I think got slaughtered a little bit more that night from my recollection. I hung out with Jackson Frank, met Rafael Barlow, Adam Mares, who's been on the show. Like, it's fun to just like go and like chat with people, and like you see people, and it I will say, if you are an NBA fan, I think it is worth going at least once.
Oh yeah,
right?
No, I'm planning to be back next year, so this is not me being like, right. Oh no, I'm good on summer league. Like, forget it.
Where Brendon, where are we staying? Is I guess my question.
All the Dime folks we just mentioned would tell you that the formerly Bally's, which I think has a new name, the Horseshoe, that's the best deal in town. So probably there. I did an Airbnb once, and I stayed in a spare room. That was like my first year going, when I really was trying to do it on a budget. I drove from Phoenix, and I did an Airbnb, and it was kind of off the strip. It allowed me to see Vegas, nothing special, but I did see the real city. And I stayed in a nice couple's bedroom, spare room, and their cat hung out with me for more time than I would have liked.
Yeah,
so one of those two options would be probably what happens.
I'm out on that. Maybe what I should do one year is just take some vacation from work and do a summer league driving trip where I'll like go to Utah. And I'll go to Vegas, and then I'll just regret it immediately because driving that much. I already regretting talking about it.
Yeah, you know how far apart things are out here? I feel like you'd be in for a rude awakening.
I'm going to our nation's capital at the end of the month via car, and that's like a 6-hour drive for me, and I'm already like,
that gets you to San Diego from Phoenix, and that's like the closest city to us. So, yeah.
Hometown of Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah. That gets you like almost to LA from Phoenix. Yeah, well, so it's different.
I'll be Spirit red eye flights for me next summer. We'll stay at Bally, and maybe you can join me. What I will do on day 3, which is do what I did last time and go to a bookstore for 2 hours just to like decompress and get a green smoothie and like make my body feel okay.
Yeah, it's what you need. More than like 3 or 4 days in Vegas is a problem.
It's a huge problem. All right. Speaking of people that are a problem, great segue for me. Victor Wembanyama. Brendon, game 2 for him was so much better than game 1, dare I say. He finishes game 2, a game the Spurs lost, but like who cares about when it's wins and lessons in summer league. Losses don't really matter. Frankly, I think everyone in some degree wants to like lose and go home and not be in Vegas for like 10 days. That's the thing if you talk to NBA people. Vic plays 26, just under 27 minutes, 9 of 14 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, including a late one that got this game within 1. 7 of 12 from the line, 12 boards, including 4 on the offensive glass, had 3 blocks, and a steal, 27 points, a team high 27 points for Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
Brendon, he was awesome in this game, a ton of fun. He looked just a little more comfortable the second time through. Obviously, we didn't get the Scoot showdown. We'll talk about Scoot later. But Vic was absolutely awesome in this second summer league game for him.
Yeah, he was much more comfortable. I think that's the right word. I mean, I think the most indicative kind of moment was he had a little bit of a hot stretch in that fourth quarter, kind of midway through the fourth quarter, and there were a couple of possessions where the Spurs bring it down, and you just can tell the panic that he was inducing in Portland, and they're just sending... I mean, Baji, the dude that they have, is pretty close to as big as Vic, but he wasn't out there a ton, only played 19 minutes. And any of the other moments, it was just like immediate double teams. Like they were just petrified of the dude around the basket. And honestly, if the Spurs guards had gotten him the ball a little bit more, we might have even seen like a real scoring performance. I mean, 27 is obviously great, but it could have been a lot more because he just had advantages. And I think it was a nice reminder of how easy the game can come, because he had a nice passing game in the first game. And he's always going to make plays defensively around the rim. So like you already could, I mean, even in a bad game when all the internet wanted to make him into a bust and be stupid, like you could still see the natural ability. And then in this one, you're like, okay, if he can just make even a couple plays a game, he's going to produce and open things up for his teammates and just kind of show you the effortlessness that's there when you're fluid and 7'3".
Brendan, through the two games, the thing that I think has popped the most, in my opinion, is a lot of the defensive work. It has been a lot of the defensive poise and defensive awareness, and his ability to just kind of not totally snuff things out, but really control the defensive side of the floor just by his presence, even if he's not always like maybe going as hard as he might in the regular season or boxing guys out all the time. His presence is a real deterrent. We can already see that is happening, right? This was the game where it's like, oh, right, he has an offensive skill set as well. Like, it's not just, like he didn't, the offensive play that I might think more about anything else was an offensive rebound he had. He tipped the ball back up to himself and planted for like half a second and went back up and puts it in, and it's just like it looked like a video game glitch the way he moved, because he didn't even have to get off the ground that high, right?
Yeah.
He does things that are normal, and then I don't know how you felt, but when he took that three late in this game, he gets all the space, and it was one of those moments where you look like there's no way this isn't going in.
Yeah. I literally said it out loud to myself. I said, he got one. Like, I kind of like muttered it to myself. I was like, yeah, of course, because you could just. And that's the thing. Like, he told us after the first game, he literally said, I didn't know what was going on. You know what I mean? And like, that actually kind of surprised me to hear, because I watched a lot of at least the playoff games, not fully, minute one to the end, but I tuned into many of the playoff games that they played in the French league, and I didn't really feel like this would be that much of a shock to him. But I do think that there's a speed element that's not there in European basketball, and just the athletic kind of like overpowering ability that even like a decent or fringe NBA player is going to have. But he definitely settled in, and that three was a perfect example of it. The dude also can just finish with both hands. Like, is he LeBron James, or like the ambidextrousness? I know like Anthony Edwards is one guy that they say that about, but it makes a huge difference, especially when you're already getting your shot off above anybody. I mean, he's not going to shoot a jumper left-handed, but in the post, like, he's just dropping shots in over everybody's head off the glass with either hand, and it's like, that just feels like a cheat code.
He is just a walking cheat code with this frame, with the know-how, with the comfort. I think the big miss here is that we don't get him and Scoot. That's the thing I think we all would have liked to see. And obviously their G League and Mets '92 showdown was a ton of fun, and Scoot really went at him. Mm-hmm. The ring, the kind of what happened here, especially with Shaedon Sharpe kind of not really playing particularly well.
He was weirdly bad. Like, it was one of those things where it was like, just never watch a single minute of film from this one, dude, because you're missing layups. It was ugly.
Are you saying he is not going to be on your Too Good for Summer League All-Stars?
He was a fringe guy. He was playing for his spot on the team in this game and just blew it.
Tough. So look, Vic is in the spot where I think we're going to just continue to be wild by him. I think a reoccurring thing on the show, the whole 2023-24 NBA season, the rest of Summer League, however many games he plays and is still there, is going to be, did you see what Victor Wembanyama did this week? He is going to be must-see in this way. But it was so impressive to me, maybe more than anything else, about how just one game, it took him one game just to kind of look really comfortable and look really just kind of like he knew that he belonged in this environment. It wasn't going to feel weird about being there at all.
Yeah, and credit to the Spurs staff, too, because I do think he was like physically in no man's land during a lot of that first game. Like kind of in the dunker spot, but kind of not. Am I supposed to get the ball for a dribble handoff, or am I actually just in everybody's way? You know what I mean? And then in this game, especially in that fourth quarter, they were spacing him out to the corner to start a lot of possessions. And then he would either duck in for a post up, or he would come off of a screen because he's an alien, or he would just stay spotting up. And that's kind of how he got that opportunity for the three. So them just sort of simplifying what he was physically, where he was and what ways he was getting involved offensively, I do think went a long way. And, the GM did an interview on Friday, and he was talking about just being pretty patient and learning from Victor. Like, you know what I mean? What is his adjustment period to the NBA going to teach us about what we need to do in return to support him. And I think like that's why they're playing him this week, because I didn't think he would play. I didn't think he would play a minute this weekend, but I think it's been really valuable. And my last note on it was just the Friday game. You know, a lot of people were like, wow, like he can't handle Kai Jones's athleticism. And I'm like, I'm not even positive Kai Jones is an NBA player at this point. I think it was less about that, and it was more about the help and them crowding him and him just having the ball in his hands too much. But I do think that's going to be an adjustment period that he has in the league, is bigger forwards, especially if they play him at the 4. In those finals in France, Jaron Duran Blossom game, who people might remember, I think he went to Syracuse.
Jaron Blossom game went to Clemson.
Okay, the orange. I got him.
And yeah, I only know this. I only know this because he played for the Cleveland Cavaliers for sure.
Okay, and so he was handing it to Victor in those finals, like physically, like not every possession, but there were moments where you're like, hold on, how is this happening? But it is that frame, and it is the strength, and that's going to be an adjustment, especially if he's playing the 4. So I don't think it was Kai Jones. I think it was the hands and bodies in his way anytime that he had the ball in his hands. And even the Hornets, who have sucked all week, they've been awful. Even they could just kind of get in his head and get in his way, because it's different than it was when, you know, he's bigger than everybody in France and everything. So it's going to be fun to keep watching. I'm going to love the adjustment period, because again, it can be so easy for him when he gets it rolling.
Brendon, quick Jaron Blossom game trivia question. Do you know what G League team he started out with in his NBA career?
Well, I got his college wrong, and I think that was probably a little more prominent in my memory, so no.
Well, but no, think about why would I ask this in relation to Victor Wembanyama?
You're going to have to give it to me.
It's the He played for the Austin Spurs. He was picked by the Spurs late in the 2017 draft, and he started his NBA career for a season with the Austin Spurs. He made it All NBA G League 13 per his Wikipedia page.
So this is a great segue, actually, because speaking of all the tentacles of the Spurs that reach across the league, Gregg Popovich signed this extension, 5 years, $80 million, and I feel like talking about the future of Pop, I always get a kick, and maybe it's not the most exciting thing to everybody, but the coaching tree that this dude now has, you actually kind of have to, like, it fluctuates year to year because there's so many coaches now that some of them just get fired and come back and get fired and come back. But right now, Monty Williams, Steve Kerr, Jacques Vaughn, Becky Hammon, pro coach, not an NBA coach, obviously, Mike Brown, Will Hardy, plus Bud, who just got fired. But then now there's a whole Bud tree, so it's almost like another branch of the Pop tree, which is Quinn Snyder, Darvin Ham, and Taylor Jenkins.
Yep.
That's 9 coaches plus Bud to get you to 10. And I would assume Bud will not go very long without a job. You could also include Ime Udoka if you want to. He kind of bounced around, but I would actually count him. So that gets us to 11. More than a third of the NBA can attribute their coaching roots to this one dude. And I almost kind of think about it when I'm zooming out and looking at this extension as like, it's an indication that you're never going to leave at the right time, because the successor is never going to be perfect and people are just going to have to continue their careers. And I think that has to have factored in for him to just kind of look at it and be like, this is going to be a crapshoot when I leave, so why not never leave?
Yeah. Brendon, do we want to talk about the practicality of some of this first, or do you want me to go into my meta, like this like meta kind of comparison I want to make? What would you rather me do?
I mean, the only practicality point I think that there is to make is just what Woj said, right? I mean,
yeah.
And I think you and I were texting about this kind of at the same time that other people started to discuss it on Twitter, and then Woj just sort of reported it, which is he's also the president of basketball ops here on the team. And so, like, this extension doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be coaching. He's already coached longer than almost any professional sports coach ever has at age 74. But this doesn't mean he's going to be on the sideline till he's 79. I think it very well could just mean he becomes the Pat Riley at the end of this, you know, and just oversees the whole operation. I hope for his sake he's not traveling the country coaching basketball when he's almost 80 years old. Like, he's got to take it easy at some point.
Yeah, he's been coaching forever at this point. Like longer than I wonder if you went back into the late 90s. You go back to 90. Wonder if you went back to 94 when he returned to San Antonio as their GM and VP of basketball ops after when the Holt family bought the team. I wonder if he would be like, I'm going to be coaching the Spurs, and when? How long in the future? Like, I wonder if you went back and like asked him what he thought about that, what he would say. It's been obviously a long ride. The rewarding on that Woj thing was kind of interesting because it said it is possible his new deal still allows him to. I'm like, okay, like the answer is Gregg Popovich could like kind of do whatever he wanted in San Antonio.
Yeah, do we really think like San Antonio is going to be like, no, your contract's void if you want to not coach anymore. Sorry, hit the road, Jack. It's over.
Yeah, here's where I went with this, and my brain is broken, and I'm going to readily admit this. But the first person I thought of in relation to Pop was Martin Scorsese. Here's why. Scorsese has a film coming out this fall, Killers of the Flower Moon. Very excited. And he gave interviews and gave a lot of quotes around at the Cannes Film Festival where that movie debuted. And he's kind of like really grappling with his mortality. Now, he's 9 years older than Gregg Popovich. Martin Scorsese is 83 years old. Pop 74. There is a difference there, obviously. But he gave this quote, and like we will never get anything from Pop that is as introspective into where his brain is at. And I don't. Pop can do whatever he wants. But this is what Scorsese says. This is from Vanity Fair. I'm old. I read stuff. I see things. I want to tell stories, and there's no more time. Kurosawa, when he got his Oscar, when George Lucas and Steven Spielberg gave it to him, he said, I'm only now beginning to see the possibility of what cinema could be, and it's too late. He was 83 at the time. I said, what is that now? Now I know what he means. So Scorsese, I'm going to correct his age. I messed that up. Scorsese he's 80 years old. Yeah. He is exactly 80 years old, not 83, but Kurosawa was 83. He's been making movies like back to the 70s and stuff. Like he was born during World War II, right? This is an older guy. Where the Pop thing where my brain went was I wonder, and again, I don't think Pop will ever come out and tell us this or what he's thinking, but I wonder if he is just like, he's been around for like multiple evolutions of the game of basketball, and now this 7'3.5", he's not taller than that, no matter what anyone will tell you. Alien is now playing for his team. And he's like, okay, I'm starting to understand that basketball can like become this other thing. That is probably really motivating to him to some degree. That's why he's sticking around. And he's probably just in his his wife died a couple years ago. His children are older. We don't really know a ton about his personal life. That's not something he's obviously gone out of his way to be like, yeah, this is what's up. This is what I want. This is what, like, all that stuff, whatever. But he's in this like place in his life where like I feel like he is so clearly like grappling and engaged with and processing the modern game of basketball. Smarter people than me could probably go through and tell you how his offensive schemes, his defensive schemes, all that stuff has evolved since the last finals run they had a couple of years ago when they went up against Miami. And now he gets Victor Wembanyama on his team and a bunch of other young guys. I'm sure there's something about this that is just motivating him, considering where he's at in his life and what his life is like now. I don't know that to be true, but that comp to me, Brendon, just popped into my brain when we started reading about this and thinking about it.
No, I think that must be part of it. I mean, it would have to be. I mean, even to stick it out through this point in the rebuild to get to this year, he must have had some sort of energizing force behind him of getting to work with young guys again and just sort of imagine. I mean, they like even watching Malachi Branham and Blake Wesley in this game, those guys don't play like Spurs, like the old way we would have thought of that, like Branham's chucking shots every time he gets the ball, and a lot of these guys are very different types of players than we would have associated with this team. Even Jeremy Sohan we used to think like if you're going to be a Spur, you're either a big or you can shoot, and those are your options. Jeremy Sohan is none of those things, and I feel like another part of this must be the culmination of kind of the globalization of all of this, right? Like the ability to Jeremy Sohan is Polish, but obviously Victor Wembanyama is French, and That must be awesome, to kind of be the like trailblazer, no pun intended, of bringing European thinking into the game, and then to kind of get to see, like, you even just think it in like a cyclical way, like, would Victor Wembanyama even have ended up what he is if the Spurs hadn't open minds and open doors for people like you know what I mean? Like, he's kind of it's sort of like the brainchild of what Pop's career has been, if you really want to get that deep with it. So I would imagine that that's a huge part of why he wants to continue to see this through.
And I love that we're going to get Pop in this setting. I love that we're going to get to see Pop Moldovic. That's really cool. From a historical standpoint, we're going to get to see Gregg Popovich, who coached Tim Duncan and David Robinson and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili and Boris Diaw and, litany of other, Kawhi Leonard. He's going to get to coach Victor Wembanyama. And, like, it's been really cool also just to see, like, how Vic has had dinner with Tim Duncan and David Robinson, and like this organization has really embraced him, and Pop's at the head of that. Pop's at the head of that table. It is really cool. And again, I don't think we're ever going to get a Gregg Popovich thing where he explains what's exactly going on in his mind or what he's thinking emotionally or what he's feeling about all of this. He's more likely to just tell you you're an idiot and tell your questions dumb than he is to like give you like an honest answer.
Have you ever asked Pop a question?
Once, and he gave me a very curt answer. He didn't embarrass me, though, which was nice.
That's brave. What'd you ask him?
Don't remember. I just remember it went well. Brendon, I had a slight panic attack when I asked him a question.
Yeah, that's just like, I mean, obviously you don't cover the Spurs, so you didn't like have to do that.
This was like, it was during I'm sure it was during the LeBron maybe the last LeBron year, and I just like offered up I'm sure it was a LeBron softball. I'm sure it was just like something that he could kind of swat away, but wouldn't be like, you're a moron.
Somebody who I won't name because I don't want to make them feel bad, because everybody's gotten in the war path of a Pop curt answer, if not worse than a curt answer. But a Suns media member this past season was asking about, because Booker and Durant had played in the Olympics under Pop in Tokyo 2 years ago, and accidentally included LeBron as one of the people that Pop got to work with through Team USA. And Pop disregarded the entirety of the question and said LeBron wasn't there.
Got to get your facts, ducks in a row with that guy,
Yeah, but I mean, so I am going to be fascinated to I guess explain why I did the coaching tree thing, just to see who takes this thing over. Because I don't know, not to be like, make this into a negative thing a little bit, but like, it's probably not going to be Brett Brown. Probably shouldn't be Brett Brown.
He is like a fine coach, but I don't know if like he is.
He's also not like the youngest person, and I tend to think that they'll probably look for somebody in their 30s or 40s to trend, like Spoelstra, right? I mean, maybe I'm just kind of thinking of it too one-to-one with the Heat situation, but will one of these coaching tree people come back to San Antonio? Will it be an assistant that's on the team now? I'm just kind of fascinated because of how many people have come and gone that didn't get it. It's like, I put this in my notes, that it's like the overly benevolent spinoff of Succession that HBO would never greenlight. Like, it's just a nice, like, very beautiful, like, wine dinners every week type of version of that show. But what do you think happens? Do you think somebody comes back to San Antonio, or do you think it's somebody in waiting already?
I feel like I have no idea. I don't have like a good guess at this, because like the name I would have guessed for a long time was Quinn Snyder. There had been reporting, Mark Stein had reported that the Spurs were seeing Snyder as a suitable replacement, and that he more and more. I hear Snyder's name as a potential successor that the Spurs would naturally relish. He resigned last year. I thought some thought that like this might be the Pop final year, and then obviously now
I wonder if Snyder thought that and then took the Hawks job because he was like, okay, never mind.
Yeah, I do wonder that, but that's the one, because that to me is a guy who I think you could have be in that job for like another 20 years. I think he's one of the best 5 coaches we have in the NBA. I think the world of Quinn Snyder, and that's a level above, Brett Brown or some of these other guys. Or I mean, like, I think the real thing, Brendon, is that whoever does do it, it's gonna just feel weird. It could be Quinn. If it had been Quinn Snyder, it would have felt weird, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just gonna. It's when someday Eric Spoelstra doesn't coach the Miami Heat, and someone whose name right now we probably don't even know, like takes that job, that's gonna feel weird too. All this just is gonna feel weird because it's like these are the two organizations that don't like change coaches or have it, or like actually institutions that like matter in a substantial way in that sense, right? Yeah. Snyder's the one though that if I was the Spurs, that's the one where it's a little unclear.
I'll just throw out a random guess just to be for the sake of conversation. Will Hardy. He was there for like 6 years.
So, but
and it seems like he's a pretty awesome coach.
But what are you doing to get him out of Utah?
Which one would you pick, brother? Hey, do you want to replace Pop and get paid a ton of money and coach Victor Wembanyama, or do you want to keep doing your thing over there with Danny and Lauri Markkanen?
Well, Danny did seemingly like recruit him to Utah.
Great. I mean, Danny recruited him to Boston too, but I'm just saying if you're picking between the Jazz and the Spurs, I think you're probably picking the Spurs. If they made that type of offer to you to say, hey, you're the guy, it's you.
And then you just do some assistance. I'll give a just name for the sake of giving a name. I'll just say Becky Hammon.
I had my Becky Hammon rant at the end of last episode, so we'll just leave it there. We'll bet a beer on it in like 5 years when this actually happens. We'll decide.
And when it doesn't, when neither of our guesses are correct, then
when it's like Mitch Johnson, who I just looked up, is currently on the Spurs staff and is not a name I knew, and it'll be him, and then we'll both I'll still buy you a beer. How about that?
I will buy. Then I buy the second round.
Okay, great. So not a great bet, but that's fine. All right, I have a slop of the week for you.
Love it. Let's go. Hit me.
It's a bonus one that we didn't talk about, and it's perfectly dovetailing from. It's more Spurs talk.
Love it.
It's already been out there. It is not exactly a deep cut here. It's this thing from Ramona Shelburne that Damian Lillard has, quote, deep respect for the Spurs organization. One, it's just peak NBA ridiculousness considering the wording of that tweet doesn't even reference a trade or Lillard actually wanting to play for the team. It is just like a vague reference to his like brain function. He has a deep respect for something. I don't care really. And then second, everything we just talked about with Victor Wembanyama and how they're approaching him playing in Summer League, the development, not even putting a point guard on this team and letting Brandon and Wesley do their thing, and Pop wanting to stick around even though they could have easily transitioned to a different era. Why on earth would they trade for Damian Lillard? It's not happening.
Well, Brendon, here's the part of this that is like an evolution of this, I would say. Then we get the Dame stuff where it seems like his agent actually went on the record and like talked about this, that he's like saying like Dame only wants to go to Miami. Yeah. That's the only place he'll go. And now he's like calling people. And they're like, yeah, we want to keep this we want to have a certain he wants to go here, don't trade for him. Like we've gotten into there. And I've never seen an agent go on the record and be like, yeah, that's absolutely what we want to do. Right? Like I've never seen like that be like something confirmed. And then it just makes the Spurs thing just feel like a nod to Pop, right? That's all it makes it feel like. It just makes it feel like it's like it's like I don't know, but that's the only way I can rationalize it. And then we're just in like,
I mean, that was always like a thing now with Chris Paul too, where there was always this sort of it got leaked here and there of like, they have a mutual admiration, and both Pop and Chris have always sort of imagined what it could have been like if they had been able to partner up. But nobody ever thought Chris Paul was going to demand a trade to the freaking Spurs. It's the Spurs. As much as I was just saying Will Hardy should want to be there, players don't demand trades to San Antonio. It doesn't happen, especially when they're a young, bad San Antonio team. Like, yes, Victor Wembanyama is there, but okay, they're not going to win a championship if that's what Lillard wanted. How much better is that team even than Portland right now? Like, it's goofy. I don't get it.
I love this Dame thing has become like annoying very fast. I think is like my through line with this.
It makes me think that Kevin Durant played things. It illustrates that Durant he didn't have the stomach to actually go full bore, and we thought Damian Lillard didn't, or was like too much of a nice guy for that. But it's clear he's willing to play the game. Durant doesn't really have an agent. He has like a manager. Plus, he just, I don't know, didn't want to push all the buttons to get out of Brooklyn. But this is pretty much the same exact blueprint that we saw last year, where it's like, oh, the Celtics offered this package, and maybe Scotty Barnes could be available. You never know. Oh, Durant kind of thinks of Miami as another place he might want to go. It's like, no, it was going to be Phoenix, and it just took like 8 extra months. But when these guys want to go somewhere, they end up there. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, let's just get this done. But the deep respect for the Spurs organization should be a T-shirt in San Antonio.
Yes, I would buy it. Homage.
I would too.
Make it happen.
Homage. Let's get that done. And just like I want a snarling pop on there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go to more summer league. We're kind of done with the Spurs now. Brendon, Amen Thompson and Scoot Henderson really put on a show. I want to say that I want to just start here with Scoot. I think the up and under layup he had might be my favorite play of summer league. I was really blown away with the 3-level scoring with him. So just damn explosive off the bat, blowing guys all game. And related to Dame, actually, it's made it a good segue. Kind of happy that like he might just get to start his career with the Dame thing not hanging over his head, because that just wouldn't have been particularly fair to him. And now I think he's going to get just to be himself. And wearing 00 also like kind of makes that kind of fun, because Dame obviously wears 0, and like 0 is going to be retired, and 00 is a different number, technically, all that stuff. But he, in his only summer league game so far, was really fun, and just kind of he put on a show. That guy he's going to be a must watch at like 10:30 at night for me, various weeknights this year.
Yeah, I mean the Trailblazers games usually start at like 11 Eastern. No, I completely agree. I think that he has been poised and comfortable and in control, which is rare for a guard. I think I used some of those words for Victor a minute ago, but to say that about a 19-year-old point guard is another level, who's not 7'5", you know? And it's fully true. I think that he is able to use his body to, it's not even like putting guys on his back and getting them in jail like some guards are able to do. It's really just bumping them away from where he wants to be. Like he's going to snake through the lane in the pick and roll, and you're not really going to get in his way because of the power that he plays with and the ability to kind of keep his dribble and the threat of pulling up to shoot, combined with the ability to pass. And he keeps looking for passes. I mean, that's one of the draft people who have written stuff and done videos that I have watched and read. Like that's what they always point to is how long he continues to look for the pass. He'll be fully under the basket, and you think he's going to go for some highlight dunk, and it's just a drop off to the big man. And that up and under layup you're talking about is another example. It's just you really don't know what he's going to do, and to already have that at age 19, coupled with the physical stuff, is really exciting. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself because he's a rookie point guard, and those don't always turn into something right away. But he feels like one to me that could. He could be like Ja or something where from day one he's kind of driving winning. I know there's going to be a worse team around him, but I think we could see that. The way I think he's just going to fit with what they have, to me, makes a ton of sense, because he's not going to, like, yes, there's some overlap between him and, let's say, Simons, or him and Sharp, if Sharp figures it out. Yes, because they're going to all have the ball in their hands. They all kind of want to score. Like, there's going to be some growing pains for that trio to kind of work itself out. But I don't think he's going to, overwhelm them either, because he makes a lot of great passes, too. I mean, he oftentimes uses his ability to get into the lane and blow by guys or be stronger than his defender, at least so far in Summer League, to set up a pass to the corner for a shooter. Like, he already gets that. That's a big deal for a young guard. That his understanding for his age, for his experience, is really, really impressive.
I want to just see them play 5 out with him a ton and put, one of those, like him, Sharp, Simons, and I guess Jeremy Grant for all the money he's making, and a center, not a center that's not Yusuf Nurkic. Like that's the kind of stuff I want to see for Portland next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even a lob threat, a vertical spacer, and somebody who can be in the dunker spot. Like I think even that, you just want a better athlete than Nurkic. Although I think Portland's trying to get rid of him in the Miami trade anyway. But yeah, I mean they have Matisse Thybulle. They're going to be an athletic squad, and I hope
run with all those guys.
So I have 3 numbers for you.
Hit me,
and I'm going to ask you a question. It's rookie offensive box plus minus for three recent similar archetype guards. John Wall, 0.0, which sounds bad, but it's not. That stat is often a negative for guys. So even to be neutral as a rookie is pretty solid. Derrick Rose, 1.1, plus 1.1. And then John Morant plus 1.4. I think it's within reason that Scoot could kind of be in that, maybe somewhere between Wall and Rose. Does that feel fair, or do you think even better?
Where John Wall is at now is obviously kind of a different thing, and I think that kind of maybe complicates that a little bit for, kind of thinking about him now. But and even Rose to a certain extent. I mean, I think he is, so far advanced from where he. Let me say this. How do I say this? I think it possible he could be higher. I'm just that high on him. I am that high on what he's going to be, what he can be. I'm really blown away by what he is. I'm really blown away by just the physical upside. I think it's just going to translate right away. I think it could be higher, Brendon. I think this is someone that could just be immediately within a year, 2 years, whatever, is someone that is just we're thinking of just like an insanely high way. I don't think that's like out of the question for him to kind of exceed that. And Ja is a very high bar. Mm-hmm. Like that's an insanely high bar. So I don't know if there is super possible. But I do think it's not unrealistic to think that this is someone that is going to exceed even guards like Rose or Wall as they start out their careers. I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
Yeah, I mean the thing to me that's going to maybe determine it is the turnovers. Can he limit turnovers? Because none of those 3 guys really had a jumper, right? So that's the thing. It's like that's a little bit of a knock on Scoot. His form isn't awesome. He makes them, but that's always going to follow him in the G League. He didn't really ever have a great 3-point shooting season, 22%, then 32%. But if he can finish and he can limit turnovers and he can make teammates better, I think he'll be right in that range of some of the better guys. To me, Wall's always been the best comp because of the kind of physical nature to his game and the passing ability. And the defensive upside. I know Wall is small for like what a good defensive guard would be now, but back then it was kind of perfect. So we'll see. But
Wall's rookie year. I just want to hit some like kind of stats for you on this.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy in retrospect. He got handed the keys. Had a usage rate of 27.3 as a rookie. Had an assist percentage of 35.6. Assist usage ratio of 1.3, which is that was above average for his position of the year. That's fantastic as a rookie. Really high turnover percentage, 16.2 makes sense. Young guard, all that stuff. I'm gonna pull this. The other thing with Scoot, Brendon, that I would say that maybe is going to be different than some of these other guys is just that he's going to come in and it is just going to be a little bit different in terms of the quality of player he's playing with, right? Like there is going to be a big step back here. And if you go back to like even Wall, his one of his rookie year, it's like Jordan Crawford, Chris Singleton, Jan Vesely, and like Kevin Serafin. Like maybe there's a good comp there, and just that. Mm-hmm. Maybe there is just a comp
which was nice. I'm sure for him. But other than that,
Andre
it was
Blatch, older Rashard Lewis, Nick Young, like flipping through these names on Cleaning the Glass, and Trevor Booker. Mm-hmm. Like you're not getting particularly good names, and that's Nene. Remember Nene? Mm-hmm. Like you're getting some weird stuff there with him, and I think you could get some of that with with Scoot. I mean, like I don't think, do they have another center behind?
Well, they lost Drew Eubanks, who was their starting center most of this past season, and he's on the Suns now. So no, they don't really have a backup center. I mean,
like it's going to be Chris Murray minutes, and he's a rookie. Justice Winslow's there, Nasir Little's there.
Maybe they can get Bam. What do you think?
And Bam for Dame. Who says no? Yeah. Bam might just get a pseudonym, and
they should be the JaVale McGee team.
I love that.
Who Dallas dumps JaVale on.
That's a great idea. 20 minutes a game, elite vibes guy. Yeah.
Maybe this is where Dwight ends up. Maybe Dwight makes a return. You ready?
I don't want that.
Shout out to Dwight for the best TikTok we've ever had on the Just Basketball Fans TikTok page. Can we talk about Amen?
Yeah, a huge bummer he got hurt.
Yeah, it is. But I'm not going to lie to you. I considered putting him on the Too Good for Summer League list.
Okay, so hit me with it.
I see some of your notes here about the scoring.
Yeah.
To me, it's just the physical, destruction he's going to bring on offensive players as a defender. Creating turnovers out of nothing, swallowing dude. Physically, he's already the biggest guy on the court, it feels like. The most, explosive athlete on the court, combining his size and athleticism, even in Summer League where he's supposedly kind of leveling up from overtime, where it really did look like a playground. It looked like he went to a middle school and was bullying the children in some of those overtime clips. He still kind of looks like that. And you combine that, like we were talking about with Scoot, the commitment to looking for the pass. And Amen has that in a way that I think that was the biggest piece that people would hype up that I was skeptical on coming out of overtime, because I'm like, when you can just create advantages over and over and over, and the passing windows are, even if they're creative, what you're doing, are they really going to be there for you when you're not getting? I just think he's going to be more athletic than anybody, no matter where he goes and no matter what league he plays in. And the IQ to then turn that into a good shot for a teammate, or manipulating of the defense to open something up. I really found myself bummed about the Rockets offseason. Was honestly I know I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but I was like, they didn't need to put training wheels on these guys. I don't think that feels like the ownership pressure really kind of missing what they have. They still have all the guys, so they could get somewhere, but I would love to just watch what Amen and Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr. and these guys would have just done if they got another season to just play. But either way, he needs minutes. He needs to play a lot, because he already has a role and he already affects winning at a high level.
The thing that I think you're dead on about, especially, is just that I think this is going to be someone that is going to fit within what Houston kind of needs to make themselves work a little bit better. If what Thompson is doing in Summer League carries over, he's going to be additive for Jalen Green. He's going to be additive for Jabari Smith. He's going to be additive for whomever, for Alperen Sengun. Fred VanVleet, I think, will be a nice mentor for him to kind of help him kind of navigate some of this stuff as well. And there's not going to be all the pressure in the world for him to be that piece, which is why I still like the Fred thing. I don't know what this means for Dillon Brooks. I think Dillon Brooks is probably just going to shoot as many shots as Dillon Brooks feels like he wants to take, particularly now that he's getting even more money, which is wild. But I think we're in a spot with Thompson where he is just going to be additive. And then you look at him in his frame and his ability to drive and get to the rim. And if teams just are lazy against him, or he gets a lesser guy or whatever, he's going to be able to punish them from day one, it feels like. That's a huge coup for Houston, just to have a functional thing. I still don't think, Brendon, they're going to be very good next year, but Thompson absolutely feels like he's going to be a part of a team that actually is watchable next season.
They're the most athletic team in the league, and I don't think we've seen a player like Amen Thompson in the NBA before. Russ was a common comp when you would read draft stuff or kind of hear the people who have really watched this guy. And obviously, like, bigger. Yeah, exactly. And, like, I mean, nobody deserves at age 19 the comp of the relentlessness and, like, scoring ability that Russ has.
And Russ, like, look, for all the times we can make fun of him and all that stuff, like, won an MVP, had, like, some insanely amazing peak years, even as recently when he was in DC, like, played at an all-NBA level. Like, that's a Hall of Famer. That's one of the best of his generation.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, even if you're just looking at the UCLA version, I just think there was a version of how hard he played that's just almost impossible to replicate. So I'm not going to say Amen is that. That's generational kind of energy and motor that Russ brings, but I think he reads the game better. And again, he has that size. So like I really just think like there are going to be nights where the young guys just win them games. I really like I still like Jalen Green. I think getting less of a role for Kevin Porter is smart, but I'm excited about Houston in large part because of this guy. And a couple dudes who are on my too good for Summer League All-Stars, if you want to transition there. All right.
Yeah.
So,
just one other thing on Amen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I realized how big I said bigger. I really don't know if I realized how big he was and what that's going to unlock for him, just because of the fact that he's 6'7" and listed at 212, and he just plays that. He plays that size. He plays up to that size, and that's. I love when guys play up to their strength like that. It unlocks so much for them.
And there's just such a physicality to his game. It's really crazy how much he just embraces content. He plays basketball like a running back. You know what I mean? Or like a free safety. Like he's unlike any of the other people he's going to be competing against. And I like watching him in Summer League. It's like, oh, and even in the NBA, not just in that weird thing they're doing in Atlanta where everything is social media content, but also in the NBA, he's going to be like have that advantage. It's pretty crazy. Okay. I did it as like a real lineup. So guards and forwards and bigs.
So you're a traditionalist. Got it. Cool.
Traditionalist. Yeah. The NBA doing positionless stuff is really just wrong. And I want to bring the game back to the sanctity that it used to have. No, I just wanted to represent different groups of guys. So my too good for Summer League All-Stars. Starting guard, Ochai Agbaji. Dude won a championship at Kansas, played well down the stretch last year, and then already scored like 20, 30 points in his first game. He was only like 8 of 18 from the field, missed some threes, but we don't need to see Ochai Agbaji at Summer League.
I think he could play minutes as like the 9th guy in a playoff team next year.
I mean, Christian Brown did, you know. Why can't his teammate? I think they're pretty similar in that they can just do the little stuff to affect winning already.
Yeah.
Number 2,
Tony Jones, by the way, had a tweet that said that was it was safe to say that and this was the game Agbaji played, that this was the best Utah Jazz Summer League performance since Donovan Mitchell in 2017.
Yeah. So there you go. What didn't Mitchell score like 50? So distant second, but still a second. Second guard, he's more of a wing. Marjon Beauchamp for Milwaukee.
That's a good sign for Milwaukee. That's a good thing for Milwaukee.
He's really good, and he's grown into his frame a lot. He was really thin. Part of this is I watched him closely because he played the Suns, but he's very good. He was good in both games. He can just score on anybody in this environment, and it's not really fair because his body's just more developed than the rest of them. Starting forward, Jabari Smith Jr.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing? He had a really good answer. I don't know. Did you see the answer he gave about why he came?
No, I did not.
He talked about how it's like it's reps, and he's like, my rookie season was far from like proving everything I have to give. So why would I turn down an opportunity to like keep playing with my teammates and just improve? Like I was not elite as a rookie, so I didn't earn that. Whatever. I'm like, okay, I appreciate the perspective, but maybe Houston should have known better, even if Jabari was game for it. Number 4 is a rookie. Can you guess?
I mean,
it's not Amen Thompson. It's not Scoot. No.
Is it Victor Wembanyama?
No, although that's true. It's Jarris Walker.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Hit me.
There was like a bunch of highlight reels from the nerdiest people I follow on NBA Twitter of his defensive, it's all on YouTube too, like the ones where it just shows all the blocks and rebounds and stuff. The amount of athletic plays that this guy was doing to just extinguish possessions as a shot blocker and offensive rebounds and freak dunks and whatever. He's another one very similar to Amen Thompson, where it's like, okay, like you're pretty athletic at Houston, but like, can we see it? And then he's like, yeah, you can see it. Here you go. And then, okay. That Pacers team is going to be a very fun team. And then last but not least.
Yeah. No,
they are.
I just can't wait to watch. I am so excited to watch the Indiana Pacers. Like, very, very, very excited. Very, very, very excited.
Last one, also a Houston Rocket, Tari Eason.
He was, we didn't talk about him within the Rocket stuff, but I love him, and I am higher on him to some degree than some of the other young guys. I am in love with Tari Eason. Just in love.
I'm glad that they got him because he kind of fills what KJ Martin was doing a little bit for them, and they just botched the entire KJ Martin thing. Seems like they pissed him off somehow. He always wanted to be traded, and then they dealt him for like 2 second-round picks to the Clippers when I think he is much better than 2 second-round picks. He already makes threes, and he's athletic. But Tari Eason feels like a good replacement there. So he the way he and Jabari were combining in this Sunday game to just devastate Detroit it really did feel unfair. And it's like, let those guys go back to Houston. Like, they don't need to be here. Or let them party in Vegas. Make them stop. They don't have, stop making them play basketball, basically.
Well, at least Tari Eason is 21 or 20. He's 22, so he can legally enjoy himself. Jabari Smith, 20 years old.
Well, yeah, I would never advocate for such a thing, but also
no. Never, never underage drink. What's that?
All right, that was it. That's the starting five.
I just want to say I pulled up the Rockets. I'm going to talk myself into watching the Rockets next year, just looking at the names on the roster because I'm running down it, and I'm just like, I own some Jalen Green stock to some degree. I really like Tari Eason. I'd said a lot in these things about Jock Landale on this podcast, so he got a lot of money. Good for him. Sengun's going to throw crazy passes. Fred VanVleet's awesome. Amen Thompson's awesome. Cam Whitmore's done some interesting things in Summer League as well. I mean, he's played physically. That guy looked like a freaking tank.
I mean, just imagine like this lineup from an athletic standpoint. Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr., Cam Whitmore, and Tari Eason, just as an example. And there's like other options that I didn't even say.
Yeah.
Filthy.
Yeah. But even just something that would work, it's like Fred, Amen, Jalen Green, Tari Eason, and Sengun. Sign me up. I don't know what that team's doing defensively, but I will watch them function on offense.
That's the funniest part of this whole thing is it's like they're freak athletes and then Sengun. And then there's that guy who's 7 feet tall and,
How long until like we go on like the Rockets subreddit and people are like, why is Ime playing Jock Landale over
I'm very fascinated to see if Ime was in on the let's spend a bunch of money on random dudes plan, or if he just sort of disregards salaries and plays his guys, because I could see that version of events for sure.
Knowing his intensity and knowing like Dillon Brooks' intensity, I'm quite fascinated by a lot of this. This is going to be this is a science experiment organized by DeJuan Tillman Fertitta. Brendon, we're gonna push the Cooper Flag stuff to next week. We'll talk about the play-in tournament.
We have 3 years to talk
now
about Cooper Flag.
Well, but like I don't know. I like us getting into the grassroots a little bit. And again, his name sounds like a cowboy, so I'm really, and he sounds like if honestly, he sounds like if Wes Anderson made a Western, Cooper Flag would be the protagonist of that movie.
That's probably true. Better name, Cooper Flag or Chet Holmgren?
Cooper Flag. Cooper Flag could be like the star of like a cowboy Western, or he could be like a fictionalized like Medal of Honor winner in a World War II movie.
Yes. Do you want to talk Dejounte then?
Yeah, we're going to do Dejounte. We're going to do the play-in tournament when we come back later this week. Because the play-in tournament format's like kind of funky. And like I generally, Brendon, I don't know what to think about that. And so I want to like ask you what you think about that. Because it doesn't make sense. So Dejounte Murray, 4 years, $111 million guaranteed. Could be worth up to as much as $120 million. I want to start with this angle on it. This is one of those deals that I think is both good for the team and I think good for the player, and that I think the player probably could have maybe gone out and sought some more money in the open market. But he also got like a very good deal to stay in Atlanta. It locks him up on security for his age, for where he's at. You know, the cap's going to go up. Maybe he's not going to hunt that, which probably costs him some in the short term. But I like the deal for both sides. I still think him and Trey didn't totally figure out how to play together, but I think Quinn Snyder will fix a lot of that. I think it already kind of got a little better towards the end of last year. But I like this deal for them as something you kind of had to do if you're going to trade for him. Either got to trade him again to get some stuff back or sign him and do like this. I think this is a pretty good value for Dejounte Murray.
It's good value for sure. I think a lot of people didn't expect him to take it, which always tells you it's a win for the team.
I did not.
Yeah, and so this is the most they could offer him because of the extension rules. And I'm skeptical of him as a player. I'm skeptical of him as a fit next to Trey, but I appreciate a player who now twice has had a comfortable environment and taken a value contract for the team to, just take the money and continue to be somewhere that they're comfortable. And so that gives me optimism if he's willingly choosing to not enter free agency next year, that he believes in what Quinn Snyder and Trae Young can kind of do with him, like it at least means he's not unhappy, I would assume. So that gives me some optimism because we did only see it with Quinn for a few weeks basically. But I mean, this is a dude who had a 0.0 defensive box plus minus last year and a negative 0.4 defensive estimated plus minus from dunks and threes. He has that long wingspan and everything, but I don't think of him as a game-breaking defender. And he's been...
No, he's not.
And he's been pretty below average efficiency-wise his whole career as a scorer. So, to me, the Trey Dejounte pairing has a lot to prove in year 2. Like, I think that's just pretty undeniable. And, like, this past year, he had the highest three-point rate of his career, but only shot 34%. Only 32% on catch and shoot. Only 38% on wide open threes. And I remember a lot of hype from Atlanta at the beginning of last season that they were kind of playing off each other in creative ways, and then it feels like it just evolved into Trey ball by the end, and your turn, my turn stuff. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see if Quinn Snyder can do what he did for various players throughout his time in Utah for these two guys, because it doesn't feel like their natural predisposition is to play Quinn ball.
No, I mean, Trey specifically, and I still don't think we know what the right perfect fit with Trey is based on how he's played up to date, and it's going to be I think it's on Quinn to coax that out of him, I think is the tricky part. There's reporting out there that would tell you, well, let me restart that. There's enough out there that makes me think that Quinn Snyder has a pretty good say in what the organization is doing. Mm-hmm. That's probably partly why he has this job, and he didn't wait for a team in the offseason to go get him or for the Spurs job, right? He feels like someone that if he could push Trey out of his comfort zone, he could make Trey just the best version of himself. He is the kind of coach that with his principles, with what he did with Donovan Mitchell, with what he did for other guys in Utah, that I think he could really bring the best out of Trey if Trey is willing to acquiesce to some of what Quinn does. And I think the same applies for Dejounte. Both those guys definitely have some things that aren't exactly inclined for Quinn, but that would also assume, Brendon, that you're getting the earlier Utah Quinn and not later Quinn that was so pick and roll heavy. So like what Quinn Snyder we get, I think plays a part in all of this in my mind as well. Well,
so on that note, I mean, I just think Dejounte has to shoot better to fit with anybody because he's not good enough as a pick and roll, have the ball in my hands every possession guy.
Well, and you have Trey, so like you have Trey, so he's not going to do that. Like there's no world where he's going to get to do that stuff.
Sure, I mean, I guess there is a world where he's like better at it than Trey, but we know that's not the reality, right? So it's like you have to be able to shoot. So that's a question. I looked at the numbers. Last year, Trey had 3.5 ISOs per game, 12.7 pick and roll possessions per game. The year before, 3.5 ISOs per game, 14 pick and roll possessions per game. So basically, the way that Trey was finishing possessions as an offensive player did not change much at all. Like one fewer pick and roll with Dejounte there. Not much of a change. And so I look at that I know Quinn was only there for a bit of it. It's more of a Dejounte thing than a Quinn thing with those trends as far as what last season would have shown us. So I look at that, and I look at the fact that, to your point, I don't really feel like Quinn did a great job of fighting against Donovan Mitchell's worst instincts as a scorer. And I think by the end of those two working together, Donovan had become like a less ideal version of himself as well. And part of that's because it was like old Mike Conley next to him. And like, it's always can't separate one thing from the other.
And they had Rudy Gobert, and you needed to maximize what Gobert was on offense. And how do you do that? It's when you run pick and roll with Gobert and let him dunk because he doesn't really have another offensive skill in a meaningful way.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there is a lot riding on this season. I think it's smart to just lock in the trade anyway. But this roster doesn't really feel better to me after an offseason. And
yeah.
I know that they cleared some cap, but that really wasn't clearing that cap space was not in order to like go out and spend on something else in the future. It was mostly just to pay the guys they already have. They could maybe trade Capella or Bogdanovich or something, but I think this is kind of their team. So it's going to have to be on those two just getting better.
Yeah, notably on Dejounte last year, 34% from three, 33% the year before, 32% the year before. The thing that really buoyed him last year on a year where he shot 31% on non-corner threes was a 44% mark on corner threes. Not a huge chunk, of his offense is the three-point shooting. 28% of his shots last year was a career high. 7% from the corner was a career high, but those are still really, really low numbers for a guy at his spot. Those are insanely low numbers for someone that plays the position he does in this NBA. Let's run through their depth chart. Trae Young, Patty Mills, Dejounte
for now.
Murray.
Patty Mills is a Hawk for now. He's been on like 4 teams this week.
Get that jersey. I would. Patty Mills. Hawks really are just like the king franchise of like guy got traded here and like kind of exists for this team. Rashid, like there's Carmelo, a ton of them. Dwight. Well, Dwight actually like played.
He
a game,
did play.
I just mean
he
the
did
guy.
play. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the year they had those like neon. Those jerseys were awful. Not good. A lot of bad jerseys recent years. And that's a whole other thing. Trae Young, Patty Mills for now. Dejounte Murray, AJ Griffin, who I like. I like him as a prospect. Showed some stuff last year. DeAndre Hunter, Bogdanovich, Sadiq Bey, who they traded for, and assuming they'll pay him at some point. Jalen Johnson at power forward, and then Clink, who I also like, but also he's coming up for a contract soon as well.
Yep.
Got to kind of figure that out. And then Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu, who I think every basketball nerd you read and watch their podcast or listen to their podcast or whatever loves Onyeka Okongwu. And to me, you would assume he's going to subsume the starting spot from Capella at some point via a trade.
And he's extension eligible right now.
Yeah, and I wonder how you handle that. And you should pay him to keep him. He's really good. You mentioned, Brendon, you're not sure if they're better. So I want to ask it in this way. They were a play-in team last year. Remember, they beat the Miami Heat in the play-in tournament.
Yes.
But, didn't do what the Heat did.
They also stole 2 games from Boston, which should have told us something about Boston, I think.
Yeah, in retrospect, probably. But is this team with Quinn Snyder for an offseason and a training camp, which I do think matters, considering how little teams do get to practice, with Bay for a training camp, with the other moves they made, just kind of where their roster is at, some of the young guys getting another year under their belts. Can they go from play-in level to a top 6? Is there a world where this team is better than either Cleveland or New York?
I could see them being better than the Knicks. I could also see them being, if you're talking about injuries, Cleveland is thinner, so, an injury, one of their main guys, maybe that's enough. I think Atlanta's deep, which is a benefit, of all of that, and some of it's young guys, but playable young guys. To me, look, Atlanta's offense last year was 9th. Would it be shocking to you if I told you they were in the top 3 this upcoming season?
No. Quinn, look, we there are some questions about what Snyder's philosophy will be, I think. Mm-hmm. That he always coaches offenses that whip. His offenses are productive and efficient and really, really annoying to play against.
Yeah, so that could be enough, right? If they're just a top 3 offense, and they were a bottom 10 defense, but that's probably going to happen again, especially getting younger. I mean, Sadiq Bey is their starting 4. That used to be John Collins, who I think is actually like a decent defender, at least as a rim protector. So, yeah, I mean, 21st in defense. Let's just try to keep it there. I don't know about improvement, but like let's keep it 21st and then get a top 3 offense, and maybe that's enough. I mean, I think that there is a clear ceiling on this team, but I could see them at least improving on last year.
Where I think they could make some noise, and at least the way it could happen is they're getting to top 3 in offense, like you said, Brendon. So last year they're at 116.3 per cleaning the glass. That was a 1 point, like basically a point better than league average. Top 3 is up at like 118. It's like 3 points better than league average. If they get up there, that's where I think they could get competitive. The East also, I curious to see what the East does look like. Are the Nets? Yeah. Are the Nets a 45-win team again? I don't think so. Are the Heat? Do the Heat get Dane? That will matter in this. What are the Raptors? What are the Bulls?
Philly.
Are the Pacers just someone we're looking at as frisky on paper, but aren't ready to take that leap yet? Is that still a winnable team? The Wizards will be bad again. The Hornets will be bad again. I think the Pistons might be more annoying to play and more competitive night to night, but I still think they're going to be pretty bad. There are lots of winnable games they will get, but is it enough to springboard? It's okay. Bucks, Celtics, 76ers, if they can kind of somewhat running back. Cleveland, the Knicks, and the Heat would be like the teams in some order that I would put as my favorites to be in the top 6 for next year. Atlanta could be like 7 again, but be better. That doesn't feel like an unrealistic thing to say. They could win like 43 games and be 7th, and I would be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, New York had the second best offense in the NBA last year, and that just feels unsustainable to me. And they were sneaky bad on defense overall. So they're the one I would think could fall. But Miami is going to rise. So, yeah, I mean. Yeah, I would even think if Miami didn't get Dame at this point, with their lack of depth and losing Strus and Vincent, it could get a little weird, but I think everyone knows they're going to get him. So I'm factoring that in. But,
yeah.
I mean,
what if it costs Bam? What if it costs Bam though, Brendon?
I don't think it's going to. What if it costs Jovic? I mean, Summer League All-Star. Really, he should have been on my too good team.
Yeah, I look again. They're gonna pluck someone out of obscurity, and it's gonna be like, yeah, sure.
Orlando Robinson, the dude he scored like 40 points the other night. Their center. He shot threes. He's blocking shots. Like that might be the dude. Maybe that's who Portland can get now that they've seen him.
Yeah. Atlanta's in a weird spot. I don't envy some of they're in the spot too financially where they've done a good job of drafting competent players, but then you have to pay them, and that when you have some of these other big contracts, that gets really cumbersome. I do what, and you're yeah. I mean, they made these trades, and then they they did other trades with Ty Washington and other guys you theoretically could have developed to shed salary, and I kind of get that because you kind of already are deep and have enough guys, but at the same time you just did the shed money. I do wonder if I don't know what his value would be necessarily. Center's kind of a hard value thing to gauge, and I think if a team was going to try to blow away a team for a competent sub all-star level starting center, they might try to call Cleveland first and blow them away for Jared Allen versus calling for Clint Capella because he's older and do a contract sooner. But I do wonder if there's a Capella trade they pursue to kind of give Okongwu the starting lineup. Maybe he's consolidated with one of those forwards. Maybe it's Bogdanovich because he's older and has had real injury issues. And if he gets hurt again, I feel worse about this team for sure.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a trade they try to make to kind of consolidate some of these other pieces and get someone. I don't know who that would be. I don't know.
They're reportedly looking for a Siakam deal, and that's kind of still lingering there. But I don't really know if I like that, to be honest with you.
I do, but that's it's a talent. It's a real talent bet, and it's a weird. Siakam would be an interesting fit with Quinn Snyder. I don't think we have not seen a player like that play in a Quinn Snyder system. Is there? There was no one on
No.
What's the closest comp you had of someone that
the person that I thought of was Gordon Hayward, but the fact that Siakam kind of exists in he wants to be at the elbow or the extended post. I think he plays somewhat of a similar style to Yeah, it's not perfect, but that's probably the closest of like a playmaking forward. But like Derek Favors is not exactly.
Yeah, it'd be like Hayward or like if Joe Ingles was like doing way more stuff and was like also a defensive monster.
It's honestly probably like Horford in the Hawks days. When Quinn was an assistant under Bud, it would probably be more like the Millsap Horford stuff back then, but we don't know how much of that was Quinn Snyder. So yeah, I mean, I don't. It's a weird fit, but it is a talent play. It's just funny to me that one of the cheaper teams in the league would go for 3 like close to max players as their way out of like salary cap issues. Is like, we don't want to extend our young guys. Instead, what we'd like to do is give 30-year-old Pascal Siakam like $45 million. All right.
Would trade Dejounte and Siakam as a core, and let's say like they keep a couple other young guys and whatnot, is that enough to push them into the top 6 for you?
Probably would be enough to push them into the top 6. Maybe they're definitely better than Brooklyn at that point. Probably pretty close to being a lock to be better than New York. We don't know about Philadelphia. I could maybe see that, but they're in a weird spot. They made this bet for themselves when they traded for Dejounte Murray, and we always knew it was going to be an imperfect fit. I think the owner did that, and they gave up a lot of picks. So there they are.
Brad Rowland, Lockdown Hawks host. I know you're listening. At least I think you are. So text us and let us know what we got right or wrong, and then I'd like to have Brad on and talk about Atlanta at some point. Even though like I don't want to do that to him. I know he knows that team better than Brad Rowland, the God. Brendon, I want to end on this. If you had to bet on one of Hunter, Jalen Johnson, or Saddiq Bey having a breakthrough next year, who would you bet on?
Probably between Johnson and Griffin, honestly. I think we probably missed the window on a DeAndre Hunter breakout. I think he just kind of is what he is. Feels similarly about Saddiq Bey, although he's never really been on a good team, so maybe there's something there still. I just think of like the broken out version of Saddiq Bey is probably just like a decent 3-and-D player, whereas Griffin and Johnson can be a little more than that. They're both better athletes than either of those guys, and they have a little more versatility to their game. So I'm looking for those two. And between those two, probably Jalen Johnson, but I think that's just because he's older.
Yeah, I'm the same way as well. I'm a little dubious of Hunter and where he's at right now. It just hasn't happened in the way. It's like I feel like him and Patrick Williams are kind of like the prime case of guys that like have this like kind of frame and possible skill set that teams covet and need, but it just has died for whatever reason.
They don't play physically and they're not good athletes. I think that's both of them, Like if you're not going to be an overwhelming athlete at that spot, you got to be able to score or do something, and they are similar. I agree.
Yeah, Hunter's got like again, like I could see another team looking at Hunter at his size and his frame and a relatively like affordable contract as the cap goes up and being like, yeah, sure, whatever. He's 20. He's going to be 26 soon. Like that's still he's kind of inching towards his prime. Change of scenery sometimes helps, but it's certainly a risk for a guy who has never like totally blossomed despite being like a double-digit scorer every year of his career. Like it's just weird player for a weird team. Just a weird everything with the Atlanta Hawks, a little bit weird. All right, we're gonna end there. This has been the Just Basketball Show for Monday, July 10th. If you have not already, subscribe, rate, review in your podcast platform of choice. Click the link below, as well in our bio to go buy yourself something from Homage. If you don't know, Homage makes a ton of great apparel that is paying homage to our stars, our favorite things in the world. They have a ton of great NBA and WNBA products. So go click the link, buy something for yourself, a loved one, a friend, whomever, your enemy, I don't know. And some of that money is going to come back to us. Brendon and I will be back later this week. We're going to talk Cooper Flag and a boozer. We're going to talk about the play-in tournament, and maybe we'll get some more Dame scuttled up between now and then. Who knows? Lord knows when that's going to work or not work. But until then, it's been the Just Basketball Show. Thanks again to Jake Stevens and Dylan Heiser for producing.